And recording. Hi. Okay, so this is Athena Starseed, and I am so excited because we're going to be doing a series on the scent of the sacred feminine. And this is going to be co-created by a beautiful, sexy, dynamic, powerful goddess who basically is really an authority. She came in channeling the divine feminine Shakti, and she is an embodiment of that. We have Zinnia Gupte in the house. Please welcome.
Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. So nice to be here, Athena. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for just enriching this session with your beauty and wisdom. And I'm really excited to chat with you about this topic that's so close to my heart.
Well, I just want to say that the Divine Feminine really brought us together. I was very honored to actually read for you. And then you sent me your book that hasn't actually been finished yet, so people can probably pre-order that. And I read it and I was blown away. And I immediately called you and I was like, you have to start teaching this right now. And you were like, it's not done yet. And I'm like, I'm going to set up a Zoom call and I want to get this out to every single woman that I know. And may this help heal their hearts, because we know the Dalai Lama said the Western woman will be healing the energy. And you're broadcasting from New York and you've done a lot of sacred work. And the name of your book is The Wild Feminine Magic, a journey of love, beauty, and power.
All of it. Love, beauty, and power. I should add wisdom in there too, but let's keep it bite-sized for now.
So, I would love for you to tell everybody your life story, because I think it's really powerful where you've come from to then be writing this kind of high wisdom content for the Divine Feminine.
Sure, absolutely. So, and thank you for opening the circle and opening this magical space and inviting me to share my story.
You know what? Please, would you like to pray us in for the Divine Shakti? Let's do that.
Okay. Dear Mother Luminosity, Mother Divine, Sacred Feminine, who is equal to her Sacred Feminine, Sacred Masculine counterpart, the oneness, we call you in as we share your wisdom, your truth, your beauty, your power, and bring this in to the dimensions of earth. We bring in your light. We bring in sacred consciousness. And may all who are hearing this receive your transmission of light, of divinity, and may they see their inner divinity through our words, through this space, through this transmission. And so it is. Namaste.
Amen. And amen. Namaste. Okay. Continue, beautiful goddess.
Okay. So my name is Zinnia, and I'm named after a flower, a joyful flower, and I was named for my grandmother. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because the grandmother wisdom in my lineage is very important. Our grandmothers initiate us. So I'm from Calcutta, India. I was born there, and I immigrated to the United States when I was 3 with my mother and father. I'm an only child. And don't worry, I'm not going to take like 30 minutes to talk about myself. I have a nice 5-minute intro, but I do very much want to talk about my Indian roots, because that is my ancestral wisdom. That's where my ancestral wisdom comes from. It's where my Shakti lineage comes from. For those of you who don't know, Calcutta, Kolikata, is the land of Kali. And before the more Aryan tribes came into India, India was very much a matriarchal society. And my lineage is a matriarchal society. So the divine feminine truly is in my roots, in my blood, in my veins. And so I come from a line of priestesses, Shakti priestesses. So in Calcutta, our mother worship is to Durga and Kali and Shakti. And all women, all girls are taught to dance at a young age. Temple dance, folk dance. Our culture is a celebratory culture. We're always singing, we're always dancing, we're always celebrating, we're always eating, there's always a festival. So when I came to the US, you can understand it was a very different culture. American, machine-like culture, business-oriented. So I immediately went into my masculine to be accepted and really forgot this part of me, this sacred part of me, until I got married and then divorced, which is a rite of passage. It's an initiation. And then I ended up on my knees praying, saying, I'm losing everything, a husband, a home. I was living in San Francisco at the time. I was moving from there, not knowing where I was going. My parents were currently living in Egypt. I didn't have their support. So something was calling me and told me to travel. I traveled to Spain. I ended up in Ibiza on this magical goddess island, in the middle of the Mediterranean, where I cried for 6 hours a day to heal my loss and pain and abandonment. And to make a long story short, I was called to start dancing again. And I started dancing ancient temple dance, temple fusion dances, belly dance, Bollywood dance. And that dance really awakened my joy and my power. And I had my awakening, my Kundalini awakening. And ever since then, I really owned my Shakti, and I became a priestess of Shakti. I owned that lineage. I spread that light. I spread my joy. I spread my dance to Ibiza. Within 1 year, I had books and a podcast and was dancing. Within 2 years, I was dancing across the Mediterranean and was invited to Bali, to Greece, to Turkey, to Italy, to dance and heal, because people could feel the sacred feminine being transmitted through dance. And in Ibiza, I really learned to bring my indigenous wisdom and the wisdom of the land and of nature. And it just, it taught me there were goddesses everywhere. So I learned about the Bronze Age goddesses in the Mediterranean. I traveled to sacred sites and danced in their temples, in their long lost pyramids. And it really awakened multiple dimensions of me as a priestess, as an oracle, as a seer, as a sibyl, as an alchemist. I literally went to all my old past lives around the Mediterranean. So for the last 10 years, I've been researching the sacred feminine from my own lineage to my past multidimensional lineages in Egypt, in Crete, in Spain, all the times and places I was a sacred woman, transmitting the sacred feminine and healing and leading and teaching, which has brought me to New York, which needs the sacred feminine, which has brought me back to the US, which needs the sacred feminine. Athena, you and I speak about this all the time. The US really needs this right now. And so as much as I want to just fly away and be on an island somewhere and enjoy the beach and where the sacred feminine is flourishing, I know my mission is to be here in the US, transmitting these teachings and awakening people to their truth, to their inner divinity.
I
That's
just
my story.
I just want to say thank you so much for that. You are a wonder woman for me. And so young. I mean, to have gone through all of that, married and already divorced, and went through your eat, pray, love moment and woke up to your Shakti, your true divine calling. And now instead of hiding out, you're now cross-pollinating, you're flowering other goddesses. So I do remember you in the temples in Greece. So I feel there's a lot of history for us to be able to hold temple energy. I've been living in my home as a temple for the last 15 years. Each home I've lived in, I've been called to channel a name for it, for a temple for ascension. And what I realize is the ascension is through the heart chakra and love. And I feel on earth in 3D, this is the biggest wound of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And when I read your book, I was really blown away because you're talking about healing the split in the psyche in the feminine. And if we look at, like, you bring up Lilith and Eve, and how Eve was very submissive and went along with the patriarchal culture and was responsible for all human sin. And then Lilith was that wild, divine, Shakti, courtesan, beautiful, intellectual energy. And you were healing them. And there's a process in the book, which I want to talk about later, about how women can actually go in and put back together those soul parts in those archetypes. So can you go over the archetypes of the divine feminine and where we got split?
Absolutely. So the feminine, and my phone, we're calling in the divine feminine and my phone is ringing. I'm so sorry. So I'll put it on mute in a second. But the sacred feminine archetypes can be conveyed by different teachers in different ways. The way I'm transmitting it is because I want to keep it simple. And there's multiple sub-archetypes in it. So the wholeness template that brings women into their natural state starts with, the mother, and then the warrior, Amazon, and then the lover, enchantress, and then the medial woman. And in the middle is the queen, empress. And someone might say, but there's so much more. Absolutely. But this is the container that really is the holy grail of our sacred divinity, the gifts that we were naturally born with, that are our birthright, that can never be stripped away from us. And we can always travel deeper into, more micro subtype archetypes and different versions, but these are like the major players, you can say. These are the major arcana archetypes. And so the mother, is that the divine mother, we see Mother Mary, Mother Isis, we see our own mothers in our lives that are there for the nurturing, that are here to birth life, this incredible rite of passage that only a woman knows. And then you have the warrior, Amazon, which you so beautifully embody. And she is truth. She is truth.
Athena.
Athena, and you see her in Athena, you see her in Wonder Woman, a recent movie, you see her in, Black Panther, the warriors there. There's a scene in Black Panther where the general is fighting for truth, for the king, for the throne, and her lover has taken the other side, and he's fighting her, and he charges against her, and she's just standing in her truth, and he says, "Will you fight me, my love?" And she says, "For Wakanda, no question." So you can't sway her from her truth, their love, sex, all this stuff. You can't sway an Amazon. She's in her truth. She is truth. And then there's the, you have goosebumps, me too. You and I are just gonna be having goosebumps all through this call, I have a feeling. And then there's the lover, enchantress. So I just talked about kind of the societally blessed archetypes. Okay, it's okay for a mother and an Amazon warrior to be in society. Okay. But what about wild woman? What about the other side of the archetypes? So now we get into the lover, enchantress. And in her most divine form, she's the divine lover. She's Radha, she's Aphrodite. She is a heightened form of love, of agape, bringing Renaissance wisdom, divine art, divine poetry to inspire humanity to go higher than the mundane, higher than the daily life of, having a house, having a car, having possessions, having a dog. Like, this is the kind of muse that takes us to the celestial spheres of music. So she can live on earth as well. She's not just the muses that Beethoven and Bach channel for their music. She lives on earth, and she lives within courtesans like Veronica Franco from Renaissance Venice. She was such a great Renaissance teacher of the art of love. She teaches us how to surrender. And then we have, and that archetype has been devolved. All these archetypes have devolved into lower forms where we introduce attachment and the prostitute, the temple dancer becomes the whore, the harlot. So there's variations, there's extremes. The divine whole form of this archetype, devolving to its lowest expression. And then you have a medial woman, the mysterial woman. And I love this archetype because this was my first dominant art. This was the archetype that awakened me. So you can come into the circle at any point. Like, that's the beauty of this medicine wheel, this sacred archetype wheel. You can choose, you have the power of choice. So with the medial woman, you have the priestess, the shaman, the medicine woman, the chieftain, the sibyl, the oracle, the singer, the seer, the mermaid, so many. I'm sure the sky dancer, the drummer, the ecstasy bringer, the fire priestesses, the dakinis. Do you have any more to add?
The you, the me, the all of us. As many different types as God incarnates as the divine feminine, there's where we are. We can choose right now to define our own inner architecture, to create our own external archetype to share with the world.
And then in the middle, and I love this middle, is the queen, the empress, because you know that this medicine wheel, this sacred archetype, is our inner compass. It's our North Star. It's our soul. So we can come at any time for initiation. So you don't come in at the queen level. You get initiated at the priestess level, or the lover enchantress level, or the warrior Amazon level, or the mother level. And then you learn the lessons of any of those archetypes. Then you go into mastery. Then you go into its opposite form to, balance out the duality. Then you keep going around the circle. I mean, the beauty of this initiation and mastery of empowerment is to know yourself and to go through the lessons of each, master it, go to the lessons of the other, master it, go around the circle to another. And so it's a spiral. There's no end to mastery from one lifetime to the next. But once you get to a certain level of mastery and maturity, then you step into your queen. Then you step into your sovereignty. You're no longer a princess looking for power and truth and wisdom outside of you. You have all the resources within. And the queen, as you and I have spoken about, she can activate her priestess to see, okay, where am I in my magical, where do I need to manifest? Where do I need to discern? Where do I need to be in my intuition? She can go into her lover enchantress to be playful, to be joyful, to attract a king, a lover. She can go into her warrior Amazon when she needs to be in her truth. And maybe people all around her are lying to her, but she has discernment and truth in her, and she has access to that. Or she can go into her divine mother, where she is, either giving birth to a civilization, to her queendom, to a business, or to her family, or to a vision, or to nurturing. It doesn't have to be a thing. And so the queen really can tap into any of her inner resources that are represented by these archetypes. Does that resonate with you, Athena?
It really does. It really does. And so I want to take a little side detour into the courtesan, because for the last 6,000 years, some of us will say 2,000, but you would think go all the way back to the matriarch, which was 6,000 years ago. So we're going to look at the 1500s. We're going to look at the courtesans of Venice, and we're going to highlight Veronica Franco. We both rewatched the movie. I've owned the movie. I've watched it at least 10 times. It's a wonderful ride and an initiation for every female to watch, because back then women didn't have access to books, couldn't read, and they were basically sentenced to either be sold for a dowry, you know what I'm saying, exchanged to a man to be owned as a title, as a piece of property, or they were like a nun or a scullery maid. So
That was
tell
it.
me, tell me the lessons of Veronica Franco from your own words.
Oh, yes. I mean, I could read a little bit from my notes as well.
I would love that.
Okay, great. But this movie that you're speaking of, Dangerous Beauty, you're so correct. It's a beautiful movie, and it's beautifully made. It's very poetic. It's this Renaissance time in Venice in the 1500s when, as you said, women were limited to 2 or 3 roles. That's not what their soul wanted. And here we have Veronica Franco, this maiden in a very middle-class household that falls in love with a nobleman, Marco, and his family does not allow them to be together. And she is in love with him, and he's in love with her. But she's just not allowed to go further. And in her despair, her mother discovers her sadness, and she says, you can still have him, not in wedlock, but as a courtesan. And she's just like, what? What is this other archetype? What is this other role that's available to me? And she says, the courtesan, is a very educated, enlightened, liberated, and passionate woman. She is not a prostitute. So Veronica Franco's like, I don't want to be a prostitute. She's like, she's not a prostitute. She's the geisha. She's the temple dancer, courtesan. It was a role reserved for women, but for women who had the gift already or could be trained. And what was that training? The training was in art, music, literature, geometry, mathematics, the classics. So once you receive this education, you're allowed to go into the libraries, but only courtesans, not wives, not daughters, not This is the catch. It's like you marry into nobility, but you're not allowed any of the rewards of nobility. So here you have this forbidden archetype, the courtesan, who owns her sexual power, owns her financial power, owns her creative power, and she is allowed to flourish. Why? Because she is not tied to a man. She is her own woman. She is self-responsible. She is her own muse. She is her own banker. She is her own landlord. She is her own voice. So I want to pause there for 1 second before I kind of read and channel. I've been channeling Veronica Franco a lot. Is as soon as, and I've seen this in my own life, when I thrive the most, when I'm at the peak of my creative, financial, sexual power, I'm usually alone. It's as soon as I get with a man, some kind of compromise starts to happen. And then I pull back. I'm like, Mom, Dad, no, I just want to continue being alone. So this is what I want to explore with you on the call today is why is it that we're conditioned to give up all that power once we become entwined with a man? And this is her journey. She goes through this journey of being so enlightened and liberated. And in her truth, she's not just a shiny, bright object for men to play with. She is respected. She advises noblemen, sons of noblemen. She advises ministers and the
King
priesthood
of
in
France,
Venice.
the King of France. They saved Venice with the King of France. Yeah.
He becomes a diplomat and negotiates peace and brings Venice out of the brink of war with the King of France. What
That
a
is
woman.
powerful. Back then,
What a
that is
woman.
so powerful. And I think she was like one of the first females published. She got her poetry published back then when women couldn't even read.
Exactly. So why was it that she was given this authority, that she was given this right? I don't think society just bowed down to her feet. I think she took it. I think she just took that power because we're taught like, oh, beg for power, wait for power, earn your power. She's like, oh no, because I think the loss of Marco made her so hell-bent on being his equal. And there's a scene in the movie where he's like, oh, can I be your next customer? And she's like, I'm sorry, I'm all booked up. Because she's telling him, I'm busy. I'm busy writing. I'm busy teaching. I'm busy loving. I'm busy with my business. I'm busy consorting with kings. Go away. And it's to teach him a lesson that you can't just treat women like objects to be played with, objects to be manipulated. She actually awakens him. She actually inspires him to fall in love with her as an equal and as a soul, to the point where he defends her, because there is the plague strikes Venice, and there's an inquisition there, and the Christian faith comes in and starts to question Venice. That was a separate authority that had its own laws and rules, and starts to question Venice's very libertine, Dionysian ways, and then starts the inquisition there. And who are the first to blame? The women, the prostitutes, the courtesans.
Right.
And that begins kind of the fall of the courtesan. But when she's tried as a witch, she gives this impeccable speech. Oh,
I have the speech. I want to play it. I tape recorded it.
can you play it?
I want to see if it plays, because I think that speech is extremely important, because one of the men that really wanted her, that was jealous of her, he's the one who wanted to put her up on witchcraft charges so she could be murdered, and discredited all the work she did with the French king to get the ships that Venice needed to save Venice. They wouldn't even be there if it wasn't for her. And how the masculine out of balance archetype has been trying to enslave and suppress this female power. And we're not talking about feminism here. We're talking about, once we go through this, we want to go into the union of masculine feminine power. So I'm going to play this speech, because this is where it happens. Because when Marco stood up for her after she says this speech, it started to come back to what you're talking about in your book. So let me get the soundbite, and then you can comment on it. I just love you. You're so juicy. Okay, here we go. You can hear it.
I find more ecstasy and passion than in prayer. Such passion is prayer. I confess I pray still, eyes upon me, his arms enfolding me. Save yourself, please. Such surrender has been mine. Yes, I hunger still to be filled and inflamed, to melt into the dream of us, beyond this troubled place, where we are not even ourselves, to know that always, always this is mine.
Your Grace.
Yes, it's so beautiful. And that jealous man, her rival poet, who's jealous of her success, of her fame, and she also rejects him sexually, he later on becomes an inquisitor of the Christian faith. And what you just said, he puts her on trial for witchcraft, and he tells her to denounce. He discredits her, and he asks her to denounce and confess. And she said, I will confess. And what you just played, I confess that I awaken men to their higher love, to ecstasy and bliss. I make them melt into, and she's not going to confess what she is not. She's going to confess what she is. And Marco goes to her jail cell and says, drink this poison, die. She says, no, I want to live in my truth. I'm not going to die with my untruth.
And he says to her, just say you're a witch and be free. And she says, no. And he goes, why don't you care? Why don't you just do it? She goes, because I'd be lying to myself. I would be denying what I actually am. And so she faces that trial, and she stands up and says her confessions. And Marco stands up and calls all the men, every man in Venice, stand up for this woman. And very reluctantly, one by one by one, more than half the court stands up, even the clergy, and they stand in her honor, and her life is saved.
She's very lucky. Not millions of others were not saved. But I think that's why we love her story, is because she was one of the ones who survived and thrived. And the men honored her because she honored herself. And that's really what I touch in my book, is when you do not honor yourself, when you do not honor your soul, you're betraying yourself, and you have a belief that I'm not enough on my own. I can't stand in my truth and in my soul and that be enough. I need something outside of me to validate me. And she didn't stand for that. She stood for, Marco, even if you leave, even if these men leave, I'll die with my truth, with my soul truth. That I'll carry that with me. And I think that's a very higher, that's high wisdom. That's a higher, not everyone is willing to do that. Do you agree? Like,
I want to say yes. And I want to say that she was a prophetess. She was a visionary. She was also an oracle. She could channel for these men she made love to. She knew what the king wanted because he was hurt and he was crying and he was confused. And she helped him through something, which is how she got the ships. When she gave that glorious speech at the very end, all these men stood up. She not only saved her soul, she enlightened each one of these men and their wives simultaneously with her speech.
tell me about that a little bit. Tell me about how you feel. I can understand how she made love to the men, channeled what they needed through unconditional love, gave that to them. And you and I speak about that a lot. And this happens in my life where, after my divorce, I have been very much my lover enchantress archetype for the last 10 years. I have been in my wild woman archetype. I've been living this archetype so I could write about it. How can I write about something that I have not yet embodied and lived? And so I've had women friends who are married or want to be with a man. They're like, how do these men continue to come back to you when you don't want anything? I'm like, it's for that very reason that they can continue to come back to me. There's no expectation. There's no outcome. It's a sharing of our gifts. It's a sharing of our fears. It's deep intimacy. I take them where I've already been, and we heal through something together. We're channeling something together. We're awakening something together. It becomes a very spiritual experience. And that experience is enough for me. In of itself, it's enough for me. I don't really want to attach after that. I want the beauty of that experience to live in my consciousness and in their consciousness, and for them to take the healing onward. And so with that kind of principle in mind, this very tantric principle that you and I are speaking of, how do you think she held space that day in the courtroom, transmitting her speech from the divine, enlightening all the men, and through the men to the patriarchal women. How did that happen in your eyes, in your perception?
Because energetically, the masculine psyche is also split. You have the Madonna whore that you're presented with, and you're craving that passionate wild woman, but you're sentenced to this mundane, matronly, motherly maid. And so there's a conflict in the bedroom. You know what I'm saying? And so she gave men permission to be in their heart passion. She brought that poetry and that romance. See, sex has been degraded to pornography in our society because men are craving this higher heart communion, like flowers and a bee, the way the bee comes to the sweet flower. And we talked about the title of our series together. The work that we're going to be doing together is really the scent of the sacred feminine. She gives that fragrance that cannot be given except through her, except through that flower. And you know, they say that forgiveness is the fragrance that the lily emits to this heel that has stepped on it. No matter what happened to her, her heart was always in a flowering state. She fed every lover the same. She transmitted agape love, which transcended human love and human addiction with rules, regulations, all moral codes. And those men, she says in that one line, we melt into the dream of us. She's offering that dream that poets and Sufis write about that they had never experienced and they were not experiencing from their wives. And this isn't the wives' fault. This is, like you said, wherever we get in on the wheel. If you marry too young, like, I don't know, were you in an arranged marriage?
No, but I had a love marriage, but I met him when I was 24, and we were together for 4 years. And at 29, I was married. We pretty much ended the marriage around 32, and I left for Ibiza at 33. So altogether, from meeting him to separating and the actual divorce, it was 12 years. So it was
Okay,
a good part of my
that,
So you can also say, yeah, I'm 44 right now. I'm reliving my 20s because my 20s I was married.
right. And this is important too for the female archetype is to fully flower each aspect of her soul, because when you transition, they're going to look at your life contract and say, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? And what happens to most women is they'll fall in love like Juliet at their teens. They might marry their sweetheart. Then they get enslaved in this institution. They're not wholly and complete, and neither is the husband. They try to complete each other, and then it's doomed from the beginning. Now, when the Amazonian woman and the oracle woman and the mothering woman meet the courtesan, she's able to flower all the different dimensions of her soul independently and then share her cup with the man, not asking the men to fill her up. Like, we don't go to a man and say, fill up my gas tank. We go to the divine and we get filled and we overflow that to our lovers, our husbands, our children, our communities. And right now, I want to talk about it because this is important for you, is our civilization. You have in your book the keys and the solution to the problems right now we're currently facing in our civilization, because hurt and upset people, if you go back to Lysistrata, the play back in ancient Greece, men were going to war and fighting because of the absence of that love. And the women bonded together and said, we will not make love to any men that are going to war. Now, how do women have this power? You know, in your own soul, that loving a man unconditionally gives him permission to be his higher divine God self.
Absolutely. And we don't teach this to women anymore. We've the primal wound, the mother horse split, Lilith, Eve. It makes you choose these artificial roles that are not in line with what you and I are speaking of, the full flowering of the feminine expression. We are taught to be a Lilith type, the wild feminine, but then not the wild feminine who is honored, the wild feminine who is distorted, who's the bad girl, who's, subjugated to find her bad boy and become alcoholic or have one night stands or live in the shadows or live in the night. So she's not honored in society. That's the shadow of that. Or if you choose Eve, then you're sentenced to being a wife, a family woman, cooking, cleaning, being in the social order, accepting the hierarchy of a male-dominated society. So you're asked to choose in a mother-whore split, distorted, demoted roles that are not your authentic truth, power, love, wisdom, or expression. So the healing that we offer in the sacred feminine archetypes is the wholeness to our soul. The key is to integrating Eve, integrating Lilith, the light and the shadows of each, and really dissolving into each other to become one integrated single feminine power. And in certain other indigenous cultures, it's already intact. It was never split. It's just really in this Judeo-Christian paradigm of the last 5,000 years that this kind of mother-whore split had to happen to take power away from our primal feminine power. So in the Egyptian culture, you have Sekhmet, you have Bast. They represent the sun and the moon. They're not split. And in the movie Catwoman, you can be both. You can be submissive and sweet and docile, and then next minute you can be ferocious, Same thing with Indian culture. Even though the modern Indian culture does not allow this expression, the mythology has accounted for it. So you have Durga, you have Kali, but you also have Lakshmi and you have Saraswati, So you're given permission to explore and express all these different facets of yourself. But even if it's contained in the mythology in certain cultures, in modern day society, if it's a patriarchal rule society, women it's a conflict, So I want to read a little bit from what I shared with you. I'm going to put my glasses on. But
And this is about Veronica Franco, right? You channeled this from Veronica Franco, yeah.
So did you feel that? I think I did channel it. I thought I was just writing, but at the end, I felt her speaking through me.
Right. I had just finished watching a part of the movie, and then I read your voice. She sent me this, you guys, on a voice recording, and I was like, wow.
So I've just had a Veronica Franco moment with a lover, and Athena has helped me heal this. There was, and let's be real, we teach this stuff. We're not perfect. We're not whole yet. That's why I'm here. I too am going on this journey. What better way to write about this journey than by living it? And so I had some attachment still. So I've had to let go of a lover with unconditional love, and I still had some attachment. So I was kind of feeling into what it would feel like if he married somebody and if he had a child with that person, and if I were ever to see this person, what would I do? So here we go. He is in love and now happily married with children. I imagine myself looking down at this image. The old me would have been so jealous. If it happens, perhaps I will be jealous. But what is jealousy? It's an obstacle to the divine. It means I believe there is not enough for everyone, that there is one source, that man is my source. My happiness is with that man. My happiness belongs to that man. That is attachment, not love, and certainly not divine love. When I surrender to the divine and all the divine mother has to offer me, to embrace me, I allow her mercy, her abundance, and life-giving energy to wash over me in a wave of peace. I allow her to play through me. I am her hollow flute. It is more nourishing than human push-pull conditional love that I have experienced. The inner child within me was once afraid of losing her father's love, that she wasn't good enough, because she was not worthy, because she equated his presence and absence with steadfastness of love. And this was an illusion of a child's perspective who had not experienced life and truth and wisdom. Man comes and goes. Men and lovers come and go. Your father will come and go. Do not get attached. Divine love burns brightly as a north star, high in the sky, always available with its gifts if you are ready to receive them. If you watch the one you love kiss another and hold someone else, can you not do the same? If you watch the one you love travel with another, can you not do the same? If you watch the one you love surrender to another woman, can you not do the same? Veronica Franco, a courtesan from Renaissance Venice, did just this. She loved everyone on her path to love and surrender. She did not possess anyone, and no one possessed her. She belonged to no one, and no one belonged to her. Her power was in her ability to see beauty in everyone, and share her divine gifts of her lover enchantress archetype, rapture, beauty, serenity, passion, ecstasy, joy, laughter, playfulness, dance, song, bliss, art, poetry, writing, and truth. She believed in her value and worth and that it was equal to any man in any station and position. This inner belief was reflected in her outer world, where she loved and advised great leaders, sons of noblemen, and even kings. She was not a prostitute. She was a muse, a diplomat, courtesan, lover, artist, and great Renaissance teacher in the art of love. She was not meant to be captured and controlled, to play house with and feel safe and comforted. She was meant to teach the world the soul of love, its pure beauty and authentic expression, without obligation and expectation, without societal trappings, without jealousy and scarcity, without waiting and longing, without grasping and clinging. Her love was free, to give just like her free wild heart. Men crave this kind of enlightened, liberated, passionate woman, but few can contain her. Her freedom is her truth, and there is no room for jealousy within a love like this that is expansive and flowering. You will not find her in human expressions of existence, where she will be confined and trapped by the ego's illusions and rules. You will find her in song and word, color and dance. She lives in the soul of existence. Once extinct, once forbidden, she now returns to bless our world. Just like the Sufi poets before her and Radha's eternal love for Krishna, her expression of love is divine expression, not a human expression of love, of obligation, marriage, house, car, possessions. This is not her realm. That isn't where her divinity dwells or expands. She embodies spiritual love that awakens the heart and for a while inspires you to fly into ecstasy and bliss. Isn't that a gift?
Let's take a moment to receive the divine Shakti. Breathe in, hold your breath, fill your body with light, upload new files, and exhale divine love. Magnificent, magnificent. I was holding this little, this is a compass, and it was gifted to my daughter, and it's got north, south, east, and west, and it was about true north. And it says, I'm the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul, that we create our own destiny. And I asked my daughter if I had permission to wear it because I knew that I'd be speaking with you. And I knew that if I held it, I would put those prayers into this necklace for my 9-year-old to wake up, to feel empowered, to feel supported by the women that went before her, and to know that her true north is connecting to her own inner divinity. So thank you for that.
How lucky she is to have you. Give her that as a gift. Oh, wow. Wow.
So I want to talk a little bit about, okay, so the state of the world is missing this divine feminine love, this unconditional love, right? So women use, let's just say this, as a woman, we use sex to manipulate, and men use money to manipulate. And so here's the dance, the tango, back and forth, that the darkness has overpowered, so that this kind of Veronica Franco love isn't as easy to flower in a garden of weeds. It can get choked, right? So what I want to suggest is that we are now on the precipice of changing our planet, and we can rewrite this planet any way that we see fit. And in my visions for the last 15 years, I have been getting a new rebirthing, a renaissance, poetry, musicians, a flowering of culture through art, music, and dance. And if any woman is watching this video, I inspire you, just like we talked about with you, you put your dances online to dance, put your flowers, put your poetry, put your songs, put your music out there, And when we're ready to go out into the streets, when we have been, safe enough to not put these masks on, to go out and go into our communities and share our cultural divinity and our femininity.
I absolutely agree. And it's so beautiful that you have been having visions of Renaissance, and tell the audience, tell our beautiful audience what Renaissance means. Rebirth.
So yeah, Renaissance is a rebirthing, and there's a rebirthing. Okay, we have two main births. One, through the womb of our mother. No one comes into this dimension except through the divine feminine, period. So your Stargate is a woman to start out with. Now here's where the break comes with the Eve and the child, is that if a woman doesn't teach a man how to make love and honor the divine feminine, he doesn't know. So the power Veronica Franco had was she had a mother teach her that she taught that she could teach the man. And we're not teaching our sons. And so our sons go to replicate putting women as in a subjugation, or putting them as like a material thing, right? Like just downgrading them to a functional, get my sexual hit and then off to the next thing I'm going to, adventure out towards. So women have been possessions to be owned. And with this new rebirthing, when the women are bringing their culture and their art and their dance and their magic and their music and teaching the men, like you teach through tribal and through temple dancing, you can show a man how to love and hold the power of the fierceness of a woman and the demure of a woman, which Veronica Franco shows. She shows her passion and her anger in the courtroom, and she also shows her vulnerability, which is a superpower.
Such a superpower, because without that vulnerability, we'll have the armor over our hearts. And my heart did have that armor after my divorce. It was when I say my divorce was an initiation, it was an initiation to get the hell out of the patriarchy. It was an invitation to explore my wild feminine magic of what you're speaking about. And that initiation led me around the wheel, where I went round and round, and I learned the lessons of those archetypes, and I brought the flowering of those archetypes, which is what you see now through my books, through my podcast, through the dancing, through retreats, at festivals, through my lovers, And I'm even at a point as an Indian woman. Do you know how powerful that is? To end up on an island of Ibiza, topless, dancing. I would dance on the beach from one end of the beach to the other in front of Western women, and they would say, she doesn't care what anyone thinks of her. And I didn't. I was so in tune with my body, with my intuition. I just had a little bikini bottom, and I had my headphones and my music, and I would just tuck it in. I would just dance up and down the beach. And then I remember one time, a gentleman came up to me. He's like, I don't know if you know who I am. You probably don't, but my wife watched you dance the other day, and you did something to her. Something in her got unlocked. So that's when I just started discovering that the dance, the tribal, the temple dancing, isn't only transmitted to men as lovers. It's when I would dance in the Ibiza spirit festivals and in my dance classes, that magic would get transmitted to the women. Women, we absorb everything. So if you give her patriarchal messages, she'll absorb that. If you give her wild feminine magic messages, she'll absorb that. But then she'll have to shed the untruths. So
that's actually what I want to talk about, because you actually have a solution for that. Not only a book and a process in the book, which I'm going through right now, but you've also done retreats, and you've had incredible transformations. And I want to be doing some of these retreats with you to co-create. However, like, you have these women dance cathartically out their pain bodies. Talk about that.
Yes, absolutely. So, another thing I want to tell you is, you spoke about this with me because you're also my mentor, and you're also healing and helping me to my next level to expand. In the last 10 years, I've really understood this joyful, orgiastic, lover enchantress archetype that is in her sexual power. And you're helping me really be an embodiment of truth as well. We need both. So one of the things you said in our sessions was that, Zinnia, you will lead with intuition. So when I would do these dances, when I would do these ecstatic dances in the temple with 60 people in Ibiza, or a retreat with 4 women intimately, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, my masculine logical brain hadn't figured it out. My body said, just go and teach them what you do. My intuition just said, my intuition led me, my body, my instinct led me. So I want to also bring that into our conversation, that everything I do when it comes to dance, when I'm in my feminine, is through intuition and instinct, because I trust that part of me. And so in the temple dances, I would go to a festival called the Ibiza Spirit Festival, and they had like healers, they had readers, tarot card readers, and they had a dance temple. And different teachers would come in 1 hour, and I would go in there, I would pray to the Mother Goddess, to Divine Light, as I just did in the beginning of this conversation. And I usually pray for a week before to bring the goddess energy in. And then, because I was also dancing at festivals, at weddings, you know, I'm a trained dancer, I had all the moves, but it wasn't about choreography. So I would dance, my back was to the women, and they would just follow me. And then as I channeled the goddess in, the goddess would flow out to them. They would follow me and move, but I never made them like, you have to do this on time. But in that moment, a wave of divine love would come through me, out to them, inside them, and they would spread it. And they were dancing in that. And some of them would go into trance, some of them would have chills and heal old wounds, because the mother luminosity heals the wounds that subconsciously are trapped in our subconscious mind or body. And so some women would have electrical shocks. Some women would have, their hips would just start, like one woman would start, Om Namo Shiva, Om Namo Shiva. She would just start chanting. I had a lot of gay men in my classes who would cry, bawl, just sob, because they felt the wave of the Divine Mother holding them, embracing them while they were dancing. And at the end, usually, I would, so it's very ecstatic dancing, and then we would sit, and then we would seal the energy in, and then usually I cried, and everyone cried with me. It was a release. It was and I never understood what was happening until the third or fourth time I did it. I'm like, I just allowed it to happen. And isn't that beautiful, just to allow, to give space to the unknown to flow through you? And then after a few of those kinds of temple dance sessions, about 8 or 10 of them, I became known in Ibiza for this. And then I had a retreat with 4 women. And the first day we would do the dance of Durga. The second day we would do the dance of Aphrodite. And the third day we would invoke Lilith and do wild woman erotic dancing. And what do I mean when I invoke the goddess on these days? We are bringing in a quality of her into our bodies. We are consciously honoring her. We're consciously honoring her within us. So on day 1, when we brought in Durga or Shakti, I told them how to get the sword of Durga and be in warrior pose and dance with her sword. And some of the women they would have their eyes closed and say, Zinnia, my dad is coming in, or Zinnia, my ex-husband is coming in. I'm like, keep dancing with your sword, keep staying in your power. I'm like, dance with them if you have to, stay in your authority. And at the end of the day, they could feel they had brought in Durga, the lion energy, the lioness energy, the sovereign energy, to say, you can't just come in whenever you want. I too have my space and authority, and I will let you, so these are young women. They don't know how to express that. And then on day 2, Aphrodite, we did dances of the Kama Sutra, poetic dancing, the court dances of India, where you're allowed to be very beautiful and, whimsical, and call in your lover and be romantic and playful, and have dance be joyful. And on the third day, we invoked Lilith, where we did ritual temple dance, and we did dance of Salome, the dance of the veils, letting go of attachments and addictions at every gate, and then just shaking it out like a wild woman, like going crazy. And then each of them were initiated, and they were given a necklace, the goddess of Tanit, who is the Mediterranean goddess, that's kind of linked with Ishtar, Inanna, Astarte, Lilith. It's that ancient Mediterranean Bronze Age goddess of freedom, of sovereignty, of liberation. And they all said, I didn't know dance could help me do this. One woman said she was afraid to chant, and we honored her in a circle. We said, sister, come and teach us, chant for us. And she chanted. And after that session, she opened her own circle when she went back to the Netherlands and started chanting. She received that medicine from women in circle, allowing her to be who she truly was, and then the gift of her taking that back and giving it back to other women. There was another Italian woman who, you know, it's such a sad story. She had married young, she couldn't have a baby, her husband left her for another woman, had a baby with another woman. How soul destroying was that? So she needed to know that she was still lovable. So through dance, she was so, her body was stiff because she had locked up her body, she had locked up her emotions, she had locked up her heart from the repercussions of that story and that pain. So I just held her while we were dancing, and I said, don't compare yourself to anyone, don't look at anyone. And she just kind of melted into me, and I whispered in her ear how beautiful she was. And I just let her kind of dance with me while I was dancing and holding her, and I gently let go, and then she just started dancing. By the end of the third day, she was shaking like a tribal leader, you know? She had let go of those restrictions. She had let go of the story. She had let the Divine Mother come through her and heal her wounds. She had sat in circle with sisters who said, we love you, we see you, sister. She had spoken to the goddess in those 3 days. She had allowed her body to receive the medicine. And another woman who was very young, she was just very strange with her father. And she said that that day when we did the dance of Durga, she told her father, my authority is equal authority. Like, just amazing stories, amazing transformations in 3 days. So I didn't even know this would happen. I also allowed and opened the space for these transformations to happen without me dictating what should happen. So I think that's the beauty of allowing the divine love of the divine feminine to come through and let her do her thing. What do you think?
I want to talk a little bit about the omnipresence of orgasm. And that was, you know, I want to point back to Veronica Franco and link you to that type of power, because anybody who's ever listening to this, if you've ever made love, you realize in the orgasmic state, you dissolve. And what happens is a power comes through you and takes the masculine to the heavenly worlds, the feminine energy. Whether you're in a male-male relationship or a male-female relationship, it doesn't matter. The divine feminine must be present to go to the higher octaves. And when you dance, you dissolve similar to the orgasmic state. You surrender your particles of the I'm me, and you go into the I am presence of the whole, the we. And in that rapture, you create a waveform. And music and dance is like being in someone's pool. You can feel the ripples coming off of their epicenter of divinity when they're dissolved. And so you begin to channel that heavenly stratosphere. So beyond nirvana is what I'm really tuning into with you, and also the power of Veronica Franco. And when these women got into your field, just like Shaktipat is transmitted from some yogi or guru, or Amaji, some darshan, you give the darshan of dance. And then the women, it's like a battery jumper cable. Boom, they're getting that hit. And then they can turn on themselves and tune in, and then be able to have their cup runneth over. Super powerful.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I want to actually thank you for seeing me. Thank you for like honoring, you put into words what I do. Sometimes I'm like, I just am doing this, and you're like, this is what you're doing. And I love that you are so clearly able to decipher this magic. And the Italian woman, she literally, in that field of Shaktipat, in that field of nirvana, she was able to dissolve her identity of suffering, martyrdom, and the Roman Catholic template that was given to her. She was able to take the Divine Mother template within her. She lost weight. She became beautiful. She wrote to me months later saying, I'm not a hot, wild woman. I'm dancing at the club. I'm strutting my stuff. I'm proud of who I am again. I'm not this disowned, disembodied, disempowered, suffering woman because a man left me. I have the power. So I'm just like, oh, she's like, thank you for doing this. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I just allowed the divinity to come through you. You did the work, you know? So it's another thing that we can't have ego in this work, right, Athena?
Right. And it's like the divine feminine, she, if you surrender, she will come to you. She will meet you right there. And even Amaji, the hugging saint, she says, if you walk one step towards the divine mother, she'll walk 1,000 steps towards you. And so we as women have to know, we already know how to have babies. We don't need a doctor to tell us. We already know how to nurture a garden. It's innate. It's like a bird flying south for the winter. There's something inside of the divine feminine that when you let go of the mind and you don't know, that you get taken like a leaf on the wind, where your destiny will help you flower to become who you are, whether that's death, disease, divorce, your second birth. Let's go back to that. Your second birth is your renaissance, your rebirth into that holy nature, the holy trinity, that mother, father, holy child that puts the pieces back together of the feminine or the feminine masculine, so that you're not these little shards where you're losing light and you're losing power.
Yes, and that's the part of the book that we talk about the inner processing, right? It's like, let's say you don't have time to do retreats. Let's say you don't have time to be a nomad like me and live on islands in the Mediterranean and pick up soul fragments of yourself, or you're not there yet to go to shamans and healers to help you do soul retrieval. So I put together an inner process, which again, 10 years of research of tantric processes, Vedic processes, Carl Jungian shadow processes, psychological processes, the Jungian Mystica, Osho processes, Egyptian alchemical processes. It's all the same thing. All the cultures are telling you the way you transcend your ego to get to your divine self is by healing your subconscious wounding, by healing your karma, by healing old templates of old beliefs that are not going to serve us as we go into the fifth dimensional Aquarian age civilization, the golden age. These old paradigms, these old beliefs, these old templates are not going to serve us. And you see, the structures are already breaking in the banking systems, in the high profit industries, from travel to anything that's raping the earth of oil and resources. All those structures are slowly breaking. Guess what? Our internal structures are also breaking, the masculine patriarchal beliefs. So the book is for women who are awakened, who've kind of been on this path, who want to accelerate their journey. The best way to accelerate this is to take control of it yourself and not get triggered by a 10-year marriage and a divorce or an illness. The more you do the subconscious wounding and bring it into your conscious, you are clearing out karma. You're clearing out your limbic brain, your reptilian brain, your primal brain. And so it is one tool out of many tools for women to really clear it out. And what you literally do is you write out a story that triggers you, like, oh, I was with this man and he hit me, or he rejected me, he denied me, I felt so humiliated, I went to my room and I cried, then I went through my journal and I saw that I had done this with all these guys. So your story is emotionally charged, and instead of hiding that, feeling ashamed, I welcome you to tell that story. I welcome you to honor it. Write it down, and then circle the words that are emotionally charged, and then write all the words in a list. And then you take those words and you put one into a positive state. What are the positive words? And then you put one into a negative state. What are the negative words? Guess what? That's duality right there. So the old programming, the fear, 3D programming that the patriarchy has gifted us with to own our own power and break and get out of, is we go back and forth in that duality. I'm good, I'm bad, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm good, I'm bad. So there's no liberation in that. The liberation comes from a divine, bringing in the divine, surrendering the ego states, the egoic states, because the ego has the good and the bad. So we go back and forth, but then you bring in a divine state. So if it's power and powerlessness, the surrendered state is surrender or truth. If it's victim, persecutor, the surrendered state is, truth or equality. If it's lack and abundance, the surrendered state is, or if it's like lack and gain, the surrendered state is abundance. So you're literally, I'm teaching women from a sacred feminine lens, because this could be a very general subject, right? I'm taking the tools, the ancient tools of alchemy, of the Vedic scriptures, of the Tao, of the yin and yang, of transcending egoic limitations, to sacred feminine consciousness, and how to come into sacred feminine power and love and light and truth and wisdom and beauty through our trauma stories. So once you go back and forth in those two, the positive state and the negative state, and you reach that ascended state, you reach the divine state, the balanced state, and then you say a prayer. I surrender this, divine. I surrender this. Please clear any imbalanced states for me, and may I be whole. May I be enlightened. May I be closer to coming home to my true self. And so it is. Amen. Doesn't matter what religion you are, doesn't matter what faith you are, anyone can do this. It's just your ego content that you're clearing out to get to a higher level. The ego content lives in your lower chakras, in your lower body, in your limbic brain. And in the Vedic tradition, you just need to clear out 51% of your karma to get to enlightened states.
And I want to say how powerful that can really be, because so I've been in the transformational game since the early 90s, and I've done retreats with physical fitness and workouts. So I used to do boot camps for more than half of my life. And what I realized is that each and every one of us has to tune into their inner light, into their inner power. And so many of the clients that I had that were overweight women were molested or raped or abused, or like they gained weight specifically as a form of protection. So we do have a lot of things in common with coaching the women. Now, because I come from more of the female Athena archetype, I would challenge women in the exercise programs at 5 a.m. Like, if you're not in the right relationship, get out. If you're not in your dream job, quit. If you're not in your dream body, turn around and face yourself today. So I would do these like speeches and call people out under the stars at 5 a.m, and people started shifting. And I'll share one main story. I had a woman who was a plus size model who was in a very abusive marriage, and the husband used to beat her and the kids. And I had a guest house, and I said to her, "You don't have to handle this. Just come and live with me, and we'll get you back on your feet." Well, as soon as she tried to make one move in that direction, he forbid her to go to the training. She couldn't accept any of my phone calls. She dropped off the planet. And after like training her for like a year and all these beautiful notes, they were like, "I'm not allowed to talk to you anymore." And I thought, oh my gosh, like what is going to happen to this woman? Is she going to end up dead somewhere? Well, the divine feminine, praying and praying and praying. 5 years later, this woman shows up on my doorstep and says, "I did not have the courage to face you, but my husband forbid me to see you. And one day I woke up, I took him to where we trained at the boot camp. I told him I wanted a divorce. I ended up writing a book, Plus Size Model. She autographed the book and gave it to me and said, 'Thank you so much. Because of the courage of this class, I now am happily single. My kids are safe and have grown up a little, to their teens and are solid. And I published my first book.'" And I was like, wow. Because even like at that time, like you have to surrender. We don't know. We have to follow our intuition. I thought I had failed like this woman because I couldn't get her all the way through. But Goddess had a better idea. They don't want us to rescue women. They want us to prepare a space so women can rescue themselves. We don't want this Cinderella story where a prince has to rescue you or a savior has to rescue you. So what you're putting forward and what I'm putting forward collaboratively is that take your story, get it outside of yourself, look at it, face it, embrace it, heal it, reveal it, and then let it go.
Yes, I feel that. Yes to that. And thank you so much for doing that work, and also just sharing that you created a space through fitness, but for courage and higher truth to come in. It's the same thing. I'm creating a space for dance, but for divine love and ecstasy and orgasm to come in. It's like, that's our power. It's not just like this mundane expression on earth. We're channels for higher light and higher light codes to come through. So it just shows the power of expression and being a vessel for that divine expression to reach other people. So thank you for that. Thank you.
I would love to, we're wrapping up on our hour here. I would love to, number one, continue this conversation and put this on both of our YouTube channels, but I'd also love to do an online thing to offer women that we can't really get out and travel yet to go to the beautiful island of Ibiza. But I would love to have some type of a collaboration with you where people could come and they could do some of the preparatory work before they do the full immersion. I don't know if you're open to that, but I would love to see that.
Oh, I have been asking and receiving and manifesting a partner like you. So I would love to do that. And I think we're going to co-create that online space together in preparation for the retreat. But one of the things that we can really hold space, the way that Athena and I have been talking about, is we can hold space physically, but you do readings for your clients on the phone all the time. You transmit what is time and space, but it's just energy. So we can cut through that energy. And I've even done dance initiations for women online. Like, they'll feel the transmission. So one of the things, the inner processing work that will come out in an online session like that is, it's not just like write your story. We'll really help women hone in on certain stories. So it could be like a victim story, it could be an abuse story, it could be like a lack story, it could be an overworking story, it could be a burnout story, really use cases that are very specific to women, modern women these days, and helping them work through that. Because I had a feeling between the two of us, we've lived a lot of life and we've gone through all those stories also, from divorce to upheaval to all of it. So we can, even you read the book and you did some of the work, and what is the first thing you said? You're like, I would like a sacred container.
Right. And I feel a part of the magic, and also too, I was saying to my friend, I was like, oh my God, I had this incredible client on the phone. She's totally inspired me. She sent me her book. It's like making me like want to, have my own inner renaissance again and again and again. And I really feel that the transmissions that you have are so powerful. I was hoping that you could invite us all into a sacred dance right here, right now, just to we can wrap up this wonderful time. Could you play something and allow us to dance with you to feel our own femininity?
Absolutely. Oh, you're so spontaneous, Athena. I'm like, I'm not dressed for it.
I don't know what's gonna happen.
Let's see. What can we play? What can we play?
Play something beautiful to free our courtesan. Let's play something for Veronica Franco. We love her so much. Her soul is with us.
Okay.
So you just lead us and I'm going to follow. And if you're out there watching, enjoy. If you're a beautiful woman and you want a flower, dance with us. Even if you're a man, if you want, you can dance with us.
Can you hear it?
Oh,
I'm just going to get my veil.
oh. This is the music in the opening scene here in Venice, and the courtesans are coming down in the gondolas through the river, and all of the people are raptured by their beauty.
How is that, my darling?
Oh, so beautiful, so magnificent.
I'm very
Oh,
grateful.
so beautiful, so beautiful. Oh my gosh, I wanna put these flowers. I want to give you these flowers. Oh, beautiful goddess. I want to throw rose petals on you, which I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take two colors, okay? Because you are the divine, beautiful passion of the goddess Shakti, Isis, Athena, the Amazonian, the mother, the lover. You're also the muse and the friend and the purity and the wisdom of all divinity, the poetess, the teacher, the visionary, the oracle. I love you. Look at all these.
I
I
love
love
you. I
you.
love
I
you
love you.
so much. I can't wait to
I
spend this
love
hub
you. I love
together.
you. I love you. All right. So, okay. How can people get a hold of you? Can you just share with us your website?
Yes, you can go to shaktipriestess.com. I'll have the link in the link below the YouTube. But right now, I'm not doing classes or anything like that. So you can just, follow the online form to write to me if you'd like. You can go to my Instagram, Zinnia Gupte, ZINNIA GUPTE. And I'm going to start on YouTube doing some dance classes. And hopefully the women can just watch them and dance in their homes or on the fields of grass somewhere. You put it on your phone. I also have a podcast called Shakti Power on Apple, iTunes, Spotify. So you can look at that too. It's all about the sacred feminine and Shakti. So that's it. Instagram, Shakti Power podcast, my website, Shakti Priestess. But I'm in the middle of finishing the book, so it's like sacred time right now for me. But
And I was just going to say, and we're going to be coming back next week, and we'll do another with you, and we'll both put it on our YouTube channels. And I just want people to know that to be blessed to be a woman this lifetime is an extraordinary gift, an extraordinary gift to hold the both masculine and feminine energies, to cultivate love for our own sons, our fathers, our brothers, our lovers. And we have our work cut out for us. And yet we have so much love to give. And it can be fun and it can be enchanting and it can be filled with magic and Mozart and poetry and sculpting and dancing. And this is a breakthrough. So I would like every being right now watching this very video clip. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're seeing this on Facebook, please like. I would want each and every one of you to tune into something that's passionate inside of you and activate that inner goddess passion today, which is creative, inclusive, encouraging, and co-creative, whether it's a dance or it is a poem or it's just enjoying the fragrance of a flower. So back to our title here, we have the scent of the sacred feminine, and we're flowering our rose energy. Thank you so much to Zinnia Gupte for writing your beautiful book. The name of the book again is, what is it? The
Wild Feminine Magic.
Wild Feminine Magic, which is a journey to love, beauty, and power. Love,
Book
beauty, and
one.
power.
There's book one, book two, book three, but book one is Liberating Wild Woman.
Liberating the wild woman. Don't we all need that? I certainly do. So this is Athena Starseed. You can reach me at Ask Athena Intuitive Readings for your own inner transformation. We love you both. Thank you so much for being here. And we're going to talk again soon, of course. Right after this, I'm going to call you. But those of you who want to tune in, we will be doing some collaborative work, and we'd love to incorporate that with you. We'd love to include you. All right.
Love
Blessings.
you.
All right. Thank you so much, the Divine Mother. Amen and amen. And amen. Easier. Okay. So great. So great. Okay, let me end our recording. Stop recording. Yay. Thank you. Bye.